In this video, we are looking at Classic FM's top 20 greatest classical guitarists of all time. For the past 400 years, the guitar has probably been the most popular and accessible of all instruments. Here we showcase 20 of the instrument's greatest classical exponents. Number 1, they have Giovanni Paolo Foscarini. So first off, I don't really know who this is. That doesn't say anything because I don't know every single guitar player, of course, but not a name that I would think to be on their list starting off at the first mention. But if it's only 20, you would think it would be someone that most people would know. He was a well-known and high-regarded lutenist, both in Italy and abroad. So it doesn't say anything about him playing the guitar. Next person, Gaspar Sanz. Okay, so Gaspar Sanz is an amazing guitar composer. He's written tons of great music. From what I know, he was a very good Baroque guitar player. Here's what they have to say. He was a composer, guitarist, organist, and priest. Wow, I didn't know all of that. He studied at the University of Salamanca, where he was later appointed professor of music. He wrote 3 volumes of tutorials on the Baroque guitar that are still in important use today. That is very true, and it helped other scholars understand the techniques of Baroque guitar playing. Okay, so I think maybe they're going in some kind of lineage because it looks like they're going from the early 1600s to the later 1600s and so on. I guess it kind of makes sense. Again, not my personal way I would organize this thing, but it's fine. Number 3, we have Robert Devisay. Alright, so he is somebody that I kind of know of. There's tons of his music that has been transcribed from the lute to the guitar, and because of that, we could say he definitely has added in a substantial amount into the classical guitar world. So what they say is that he was a lutenist, guitarist, theorbo player, and viol player at the court of the French kings Louis the 14th and Louis the 15th. He was a singer and composer of the lute, theorbo, and guitar. He published 2 books of composition which contain 12 suites between them. Number 4, we have Antoine de Loyer. I'm not sure how to say that. He was a notable military man. He died in poverty and obscurity. Oh, okay. But research has revived the interest in his music, resulting in some modern recordings and additions to repertoire. He wrote some excellent guitar duets, and he was the Knight in the Order of St. John and the Knight in the Order of St. Louis. So personally, I wouldn't put people like this on this list, not taking away from anything from what they did, but if their music isn't being that well discovered, even years and years later, because again, maybe some people are playing him now, but you don't see him up to the same level of somebody like Devisay, for example, or Gaspar Sanz. I would say that I would personally take him off the list, as well as probably some of the first other few. Number 5, Fernando Carulli. So this is exactly what I was talking about, where Carulli is such an amazing figure in the guitar world for his works for students, works for professionals, studies, arpeggios, pretty much everything. And it seems kind of silly for this person that not many people have heard of to fall in between Gaspar Sanz and Carulli. He was the author of the method for the guitar, which includes music that is still used by students today. Yes, Carulli is an incredible teacher, and he had one of the first real methods for the guitar. He wrote more than 400 works for the instruments, including numerous solos and chamber works and several concertos. Number 6, Fernando Sor. Fernando Sor is best known for his compositions. He wrote music for opera, orchestra, quartet, piano, voice, and ballet. His guitar works range from pieces from beginners to advanced players. Yes, he has tons of beginner studies. The most notable would be the Sor studies, commonly referred to as the Segovia Sor studies, because it's the ones he wanted people to play. But he also has pieces that are way more advanced, such as the Grand Solo and the variations on theme by Mozart. And they also say that Sor was considered to be the greatest guitar player of his time. Coming up next is Mario Giuliani. So he is also someone else who wrote tons of great music, tons of great studies, tons of great chamber music, tons of great solo guitar music, beginners to advanced to pretty much everything in between. I've heard that he was kind of like the Paganini of his day. In other words, he was like one of the first guitar virtuosos of his time. In the early 19th century, his concert tours took him all over Europe. Makes sense. He was acclaimed everywhere for his virtuosity and defined his new role for the guitar. He also knew the likes of Rossini and Beethoven, and played with the best musicians in Vienna. That's right, I forgot. I'm pretty sure that Giuliani was actually the cellist in Beethoven's premiere of, I want to say, his 9th Symphony. Coming up next is Matteo Carcassi at number 8. So Carcassi is another, again, he kind of falls in that same ballpark of Carulli, Giuliani, Sor, all these guys. They say that Carcassi spent most of his time in Paris, and particularly in London, and for his hugely successful concerts. His most famous works blend the technical skill with romanticism played by many guitarists today. Yes, so Caucasi was getting a little bit later than Sor and Giuliani, so he was really starting to incorporate that more romantic influence that we have, which is what makes his music stand out a little bit different than Giuliani and Sor, which in my opinion sound very, very similar at times. Next up, Neapolitan Cost. So Cost is someone who I don't really know that well. I would definitely put him on this list if we're going in some kind of like timeline order from the beginning until now. He has some great studies for the guitar. It's a great way to get students getting to play and work on certain techniques. So Cost studied under Sor, which makes sense, and it quickly established him as the leading French guitar virtuoso. After breaking his arm in 1863, he continued to teach guitar and composition. He's one of the first composers to transcribe music of the 17th century into the modern music notation. So that's pretty cool. Coming in at number 10 is Johann Caspar Merz. Merz is a great example of somebody who should be on this list. He was writing tons of music. I wouldn't maybe put him in the realm of the most amazing guitar players. If we're listing Giuliani, Sor, Caucasi, Cost, all these guys, then yeah, Merz has to be in there. He was a Hungarian guitarist and composer, established a solid reputation as a performer, as well as an unusual right-hand technique. His guitar music, unlike the works of his contemporaries, followed in the romantic piano styles of Chopin, Mendelssohn, Schubert, and Schumann. It makes a lot of sense that he would be influenced by that, because that is more or less how I would personally categorize his guitar music. Alright, number 11, we have, of course, one that we could not leave out, Francisco Tárrega. He was writing tons of music for the guitar. The most common and the most popular would be Recuerdos de la Alhambra, Capriccio Árabe, and even that one that the key ringtone comes from, the Grand Valse. We could not leave him out of this list when talking about the greatest classical guitar players of all time. What they have to say is that he was a virtuoso. He led the foundations of 20th century classical guitar and increasing interest in guitar. Yes, he was one of the few to really take this and bring it into the light by making the guitar have the same level of respect that maybe the piano and the violin had by writing music that was of more substance. He transcribed 120 pieces and composed 78 original works, including probably the world's most heard tune, key ringtone, which is based off the Grand Valse. We were at number 12, the one and the only Andres Segovia. So Segovia, I'm sure, is one you guys all know. I have tons of his records hanging up over here and even more over there. What they have to say is that he was the greatest guitarist of all time. He's remembered for his superb performances and distinctive tone and style. Another lasting contribution he made was his own transcriptions of classical and Baroque music. Number 13, Narcisco Yepes. Alright, so he made his debut in 1947, performing the Rodrigo Concerto de Aranjuez. His performance brought an overwhelming success from critics and public alike, and in 1964 he did it again with the Berlin Philharmonic, and he did it on a 10-string guitar, which he invented. Alright, now we're getting to the good stuff. Coming in at number 14 is Julian Bream. Julian Bream is one of my favorite guitar players. They say that he's one of the world's greatest guitar players. Definitely agree. He received his first instrument at 11 and went on to study at the Royal College of Music. He was able to get great composers who never wrote for the guitar, such as Malcolm Arnold, Britten, Richard Rodney Bennett, Tippett, and Walton, which is a great accomplishment and really added a ton to our guitar repertoire, especially in the contemporary field. Number 15, of course, John Williams. He's recorded not only all the classical guitar works that could have been done for his time, but he's also played in a group called Sky, which fused classical, rock, and jazz. So really innovative player, really innovative person. You gotta listen to him, but I'm sure you guys already do. Number 16, Pepe Romero. Okay, so personally, not one of my personal favorites, but again, a very good player, and I would say he has done a lot for the guitar in terms of kind of combining it with that more like Spanishy, Spain, flamenco influence in some of his concertizing performances. He is world-renowned and particularly famous for his outstanding technique and colorful musical interpretations. That's a great way to put it, I think. He's recorded more than 50 solo albums and 30 albums as part of the Family Quartet. Okay, so David Tannenbaum. So he's someone who I've never really listened to that much, maybe just one or two recordings. And I mean, he was over at Peabody studying at the same time Barwaco was there. And if Barwaco isn't on this list, I would be very, very surprised, but we'll get there soon. What Classic FM has to say about him is that he was an American guitarist. He made his debut at 16. He has since become known as an enthusiastic promoter of new music for the instrument. Probably why I don't listen to him that much, because I don't listen to that much new music. He premiered Peter Maxwell Davies' Sonata in 1984, and his discography includes work by John Adams, Piazzolla, Steve Reich, and Michael Tippett. Honestly, it sounds like he has a lot of good things going on. Maybe this list will inspire me to listen to him. If you guys listen to him, though, let me know. Coming up to the last few, number 18 is Craig Ogden. So he's someone who I actually have never heard of, I don't think. Maybe I have in passing. That doesn't mean anything. Of course, he could be an amazing guitar player that I just didn't know about. It says here that he is a world-renowned guitarist. His recordings have received wide acclaim. In 2004, he was honored by the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester with a fellowship, and he received an award, and he is the principal lecturer at guitar of the RNCM. Number 19, one of the last ones, Yingfei Yang. She's someone who I've definitely heard of and I've heard so many good things about. Born in Beijing, Yingfei Yang is the finest ever Chinese guitarist to launch an international career. Rodrigo attended her debut concert in Madrid when she was 14, and in 1995, John Williams presented 2 of his own guitars to her conservatory, and one especially for her and the other top students. So yeah, I'm sure she is incredible. I mean, if she has this much acclaim when she was only a student and still studying, I can imagine today she is incredible, which is what I've heard, so that makes sense. Finally, last but not least, let's see who they put as their final one on the list. I'm hoping it's somebody like Manuel Barrueco, David Russell, Antigone, Scott Tennant. Let's see. And they put Milos. So, I don't know many classical guitar players whose favorite or top 10 even favorite guitar player is Milos. Does that mean he's a bad player? Not at all. But in my personal opinion, he does not outrank any of the people on this list, maybe minus some of the guys from the 16 and 1700s, but that's not really a fair comparison. He was born and began making appearances in major concert halls by the time he was 14. So that's pretty cool. He has since made a prestigious appearance all around the world, and his career goes on and on with his new recording from the Rodrigo's Concerto de Aranjuez, which just came out. I have a feeling they put him on this list just to kind of promote his new recording, because that was probably literally brand new at the time of them making this list. And honestly, I'm very disappointed that they did not have people like Scott Tennant, David Russell, Ben Verdery, people like that on this list. Again, doesn't have to be your favorite players, but it would be nice to see some representation of the people that we all admire so much being admired by this great classical news outlet source. And yes, they put Segovia, they put Bream, and they put Williams, but that's kind of only scratching the surface when it comes to great guitar players. What did you guys think of this list? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.